everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Back at it with another video. It's graduation day. that's what I'm calling this transit. The Sun conjunct Saturn in Aquarius. Those of you guys who are new to my channel, please make sure you give me a thumbs up. Click the subscription button below. Make sure you're subscribed. Those of you guys who are back, thanks for joining me. Yeah, let's dig into this. I'm excited. Like I said, I'm calling it graduation day. The Sun's conjunction to Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn is about to change into Pisces pretty soon. It's going to make that shift. We are at the tail end of this Saturn transit. And I just want to reflect on where Saturn has been. Saturn having moved through Aquarius really since 2020. If you guys think back, 2020 was a wild year. Saturn was in and out of the fixed air sign of Aquarius. It was back and forth, popping back into Capricorn, hanging out with Jupiter and Pluto, right? I call those like the three, almost fourth horsemen of the apocalypse. And then finally in December of 2020, Saturn made its full ingress into Aquarius, where it was going to stay really up until March of 2023. And how can we forget that transit? Saturn made that move with Jupiter at 0 degrees. Everybody called that the Grand Conjunction. Then we had 2 years of Saturn-Uranus squares, where there has been lots of bends and breaks and feeling like we need to speed up in some ways and feeling in other ways like we're destabilizing and breaking down. And it's just felt like just stop and go, stop and go, stop and go for 2 years. At least as a fixed sign myself, it's been a pretty wild ride. So I'm really looking forward to Saturn changing into Pisces. But 2.5, almost 3 years of Saturn being in Aquarius after the 3-year reign that Saturn had in Capricorn. Guys, this feels like it has almost been 6 or 7 years of just a Saturn party. So in many ways, I think that this can be a bit bittersweet, the Sun-Saturn conjunction. And we're going to see other aspects to Saturn also that's going to be taking place. It's also going to give you some vibes in terms of that kind of Saturn archetypal energy coming through. As we know, Saturn is about karma, right? Law, boundaries, responsibility, maturity, and really like showing up and doing the work. My interpretation of Saturn after moving through the sign of Capricorn, which is very earthy and kind of initiating things, Saturn through Aquarius has just been carrying that out these last 2.5, 3 years. And we've seen where it's separated us. It's slighted some people. It has also made us feel some of us like a bit of an outsider, others have really utilized the last 2.5 years to really work hard on their dream, even if it means going in a different direction and just keeping your eyes on the prize and really focusing on bringing some of your goals to life, right? Now, if we take a look at this conjunction, it's going to be taking place, like I said, on the 16th. You might feel it a day or two sooner or a day or two after. Certainly, there's a lot of Saturn energy in the skies the day that it happens, right? Moon in Capricorn, Moon in Capricorn, Pluto in Capricorn, Mercury in Aquarius, Sun in Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius. These are all Saturn signs. So it's going to be hard not to feel the limitation. It's going to be hard not to notice the responsibility just when this conjunction happens in general. Now, when we're looking at both the moon in Capricorn, we want to focus on what's going on with Saturn, Sun conjunction, right? And when we're focusing on the Sun in Aquarius, we also focus on Saturn as well as Uranus. So we've got the moon trine Uranus, where we're emotionally kind of getting down to business, focusing on new ways to kind of ground ourselves out and focus on physical, tangible change. And we're also going to be seeing that the Sun-Saturn is setting up and presenting us with perhaps, like I said, like this graduation experience of like, okay, this is what it's been building towards really the better part of the last 2.5 years. Now, there will be several transits outside of this one, really from, February 16th all the way until the better part of you know, mid-March, and I'll give you guys all of those transits one by one. Let's take a look at them. So not only do we have the Sun-Saturn conjunction, but just days later, on the 19th, we are also going to see the moon come into Aquarius and inch towards Saturn as well. So we're going to see, you know, the moon, Mercury, Saturn, Sun, stellium in Aquarius, very strong Saturn kind of vibe right before we have that new moon that's going to be in Pisces. Mercury will officially be the last planet to come into conjunction with Saturn right before Saturn changes signs. And I've had my eye on March 2nd for a couple of months now, wondering what will be pushed through, what will be decided upon, what announcements will be made, and what potentially may be limited, especially when it comes to information, speech, the internet, power, electricity. These are all Aquarian related things. Recently in the news, I was listening today. I'm a huge follower of Redacted News. If you're not following a good independent news source, I would totally check them out. They're on YouTube. They're on Rumble as well. But they were talking about how Ethiopia has basically gone through an internet outage. They shut everything down as the government's response to protests and I guess like riots that were breaking out as a result of some of the religious stuff that's going on that they're trying to reform. Apparently, churches are wanting to practice their various religions in different languages, and like, you know, the government's cracking down and they don't like that. And so there's all kinds of stuff that's going on in Ethiopia right now. It's not making the mainstream news. Part of this, I think, is some of the Saturn stuff, the cutting of internet and disconnecting groups from the masses. But also, as we start to see Saturn getting into the late degrees of Pisces, it's going to start, the late degrees of Aquarius, it's going to start picking up off the energy of Pisces. So you're going to hear more about religious boundaries, limitations, government involvement with religious or spiritual centers, the right to worship. But also, I think we're going to hear a lot more about how the government is so much more tied to certain religious institutions, especially in regards to funding and things that have to do with like pushing a certain narrative. We'll talk about that more when Saturn changes signs, but interesting that some of these things are already happening. So that's just one example of how this energy kind of manifests. But like I said, Mercury will be the last planet to hit Saturn right before Saturn changes signs, and it'll be in this energetic degree, which is the 29 degrees, the now or never, the kind of like shit or get off the pot degree where things are going to go one way or the other. 29 being the most extreme version, the purest version, I think, of Aquarian energy, which is about freedom. There's no coincidence that Mercury goes into Aquarius this week and everybody and their mother is talking about UFOs, right? UFOs, everybody's talking about it on the news. People hear UFO and they think it's an alien, and then you've got people in the White House being like, it's not an alien, it's an object that we can't identify, it's a balloon, it's a plane, it's a this, it's a that. Regardless, it's all a psyop, right? Everything's just trying to get our attention elsewhere to kind of deflect on other things that are going on in the world. And my perspective is, knowing that this is coming, I'm really paying attention over the next 2 weeks, looking beyond what's in the mainstream kind of headlines, because I know this conjunction is coming. And really what it might mean is that there is a sudden decision for limitation, to cut something, to limit something, to limit communication. And a huge topic right now with some of these congressional hearings is our right to free speech, right? Such a big topic. What is limited? What are we not allowed to say? What are we not seeing? What doctors and professionals are we not hearing from? And my concern is the things that might happen in the wee hours of the night that just kind of quickly passes, or decisions that are quickly made, or laws that are silently kind of, shuffled along. Whenever we see Saturn and Mercury in conjunction, there is like a limitation of the mind, or information or speech, and it might be seen as something that's radical. So I'm also watching what people are defining to be as like radical, or in some ways they're calling them, like terrorists for going against certain narratives that, at least here in America, or just in general, they want us to believe. Right? I can only say so much without getting in YouTube jail, so I gotta be careful. Anyway, back to the Sun-Saturn conjunction. My point is that because Mercury is the last planet to hit, likely as a result of some of these things that are going on with the Sun-Saturn conjunction, we find out what the repercussions are, it's definitely gonna be something that's heard all over the world. It's gonna be hard not to with all these 29s, 29, 29, 29. All right, so let's go back to the conjunction. Oh, I guess one final thing before I jump to that. Saturn's gonna leave Aquarius on the 7th of March. So it'll sit at 29 degrees like the first week or so of March, and then it's gonna move into Pisces. And then on the 23rd, we're gonna see Pluto go into Aquarius. Now here's what's interesting, right? I mean, and I feel like I had this firsthand just watching everything that happened 2017, 2018, 2019, and then 2020. Watching like Saturn leave Capricorn and then go into Aquarius, it was just carrying out the agenda of what Capricorn already started. So if we look back at 2019, 2020, where Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter were kind of hanging out in Capricorn, focusing on global control, government power, military operations, military complex, this agenda to be able to kind of like, you know, push that along and ensure that older people, you know, seniors in terms of top positions, whatever, were just, you know, kind of being like pushed aside because there were other people who were kind of coming into power. I'm wondering what's going to happen now watching Pluto leave Capricorn, because when it's in the last degrees of any sign, it's going to have like this stronghold, right? So you're going to hear more about Pluto at 29, armors and shields and strong police forces and military operations and spies and agendas. It's going to be all that stuff. And then when it goes into Aquarius, it's going to be like, is this the new normal? Right? I've thought for some time that the breakdown that was going on with the medical industry, the breakdown that was also going on with our troops and our armed forces, the breakdown also in the focus on dismantling, you know, the police, inevitably was going to be because Pluto going into Aquarius, we were about to find out that our nurses are about to be replaced by robots, that we're not necessarily going to need soldiers who are going to go and fight on the field because we're going to have robot dogs who are going to do it, that we may not also necessarily need people in hospitality because we're going to have, you know, vending dispensers and all kinds of things making our food and creating our drinks. I know that this sounds crazy, but I'm even more convinced now more than ever that the agenda to ensure that some of these businesses were wiped out, some of these positions were wiped out, was for this. So Pluto going into Aquarius, I think, is going to be a rude awakening for many of us, where we realize in these short 2.5 months where we have it before it goes retrograde, why there was this motive to be able to limit and suppress everything. We hear about Australia. Australia is rolling out currently their new social credit scoring, everything in regards to the cameras and you know, watching what you're doing, and how that's all tying back into some database where it's apparently being handed off to a third party, so that way it's not in the hands of that particular government. But still, it's kind of scary, right? Pluto in Aquarius to me seems like very much like surveillance state, and everything being in a cloud and everything being tied together, and not needing to pay for things. You just kind of scan your hand, right? That's all going to be Pluto in Aquarius type stuff. So what we're going to realize, I think, is that some big things are going to happen over the next month or so because of this conjunction. And actions, our will, our freedom, our happiness is very much the sun. And when the sun comes into conjunction, sometimes with Saturn, we feel like this dimming of the light, or we feel like this heavy burden, or this karmic responsibility, and this need to kind of like do something. Now, the sun being in the sign of Aquarius, it's not as comfortable. And then you throw that into the fact that it's conjuncting Saturn in its home sign, may literally materialize as we have to limit this thing for the good of all people. We may have to limit flights. We may have to limit airspace, right? There's a reason why you guys are going to start hearing about airspace and borders. We may have to limit information. We may have to limit energy. We may have to ration these things. Scary stuff. So let's look at the conjunction. And I want to talk to you guys a little bit about that. I'm going to also read to you guys a little bit today. We'll have popcorn reading. 27 degrees of Aquarius is connected to Gemini energy, right? So communication, handheld devices, documents, papers. I'm wondering what we're going to hear about that, especially considering that this is going to be right on the United States moon. Okay, the moon, which is our eighth house ruler. I think we're going to hear more about limitation. Apparently there's like a move right now for Social Security for those people who have not had the V word. They may not necessarily qualify to get Social Security benefits, right? Very Sun, Saturn, and Aquarius. We're restricting and limiting older people, not giving them the ability to have access to something if they're not making sacrifices for the common good. You might be for or against it. I don't really care. But that's kind of scary to me that there's this potential that's already setting up before we're even seeing the conjunction. And we're going to hear this like echo chamber, I think, a lot over the next month or two of, well, everybody has to do it. It's for the common good, right? Just kind of get with the program. Don't stand out. No, everybody needs to be included. This kind of like wokeism bullshit that's going on where, and I say that in the most loving way possible, but I'm finding that it's so hard for me to be quiet, so hard for me to be quiet as I'm seeing some of the stuff going on in the world, because it's because of small things like this that are happening that we just kind of gloss over, that we find ourselves 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road in just like a complete tyrannical situation. So I think it's going to be about limitation of communication and information across the board, but I'm also wondering, is it going to be this enforcement of new IDs, driver's licenses, passports, things that have to do with information, insurance, and qualification? That's a big thing that I'm wondering about. Where is this next Twitter drop? You might, not be for Elon, or maybe you are, but I'm curious to see what's happening with some of these conjunctions, the aftermath of congressional hearings, and also more disclosure and rollout of potentially what has been suppressed that's being brought together as a result of individuals working side by side to bring information out, to shine a light on where there's been suppression, particularly in communication-related themes. What you might notice really depends on where Aquarius falls in your chart, but you may find that there is a theme of committing to something, signing something, speaking out, being unique, going against the kind of the grain in society, something that may cast you out, right? But at the same time, it's this feeling of needing to kind of speak up and speak your piece. Now, what do you want to watch for? It's just some themes that are connected to Aquarius, just generally air, right? The atmosphere, space, planes, Congress, electricity, legislation, oil wells and workers, rebels, reforms, Senate, unions. Okay, these are all going to be hot topics, so we want to watch for this over the next week or so as this conjunction is setting up. As you guys are watching this, actually, on the 16th is when the conjunction is happening, but you've probably been feeling it for a day or so. Cities that I want to mention also, or countries, are going to be Toronto, Syria, and Sweden. These places all have strong connections also to Aquarius as well. Now, in general, when the Sun and Saturn come together in Aquarius, they create this strong emphasis on structure, stability, practicality. Okay, so if you happen to have this conjunction natally in your chart, you might be an innovator or a pioneer. You might be somebody who also has a very unique perspective on the world, and you're focusing on how you can utilize that to better make a difference. This aspect, though, like I said, it does bring challenges. And I think the Sun-Saturn can be self-esteem issues, issues with self-worth, issues in terms of finding our identity or finding our purpose. And Saturn has connections to limitation. So it can be a day that's like, what am I doing? Where am I going? Like, is there a purpose for all of this? And I think that that's an important part of the process, that we have to go through that. Like, we don't always have the answers. Sometimes we have to kind of hit a wall and say, this may not be the direction that I'm supposed to be going in. This may not be it. So there is a sense of doubt that comes with Saturn. Saturn transits do bring doubt. If you've had Saturn transiting your natal sun throughout this transit and it's around your birthday time, you got one more year because this will be in your solar return. And if you are somebody who's gone through transit Saturn on your sun, maybe you can kind of relate and give some good advice in the comments on how to go through it. Certainly it can also manifest as issues in terms of vitality, right? Older men, older politicians, older leaders, older kings. But it can also represent this sense of somebody who has become very accomplished and they've achieved something. So it can indicate a time of great growth and responsibility, and perhaps maybe, you know, feeling like with great responsibility comes a great heaviness and a sense of sacrifice. And there's probably a little bit of doubt that comes with that. But I think that the method of being able to handle some of the pressures is going to be about maintaining your sense of self and being true to yourself throughout that process, so you don't feel like you're becoming hardened, right? You're not losing that sense of happiness and joy and fun. The sun in Aquarius, it's fun. It wants to have fun. But with Saturn there, it's kind of like, you know, record scratch. Somebody's kind of, they're shutting the party down early. So what might you expect throughout this transit? I mean, just generally, you know, some things that come to mind is just doing what needs to be done. Saturn says now is the time to shine, right? With the Sun-Saturn conjunction. And so while this may be heavy for some people, it also might be a time where, especially in the late degrees of Aquarius, I see the opportunity to really grow and expand and to really step up and kind of show the world what it has become that you've been working on, or what you've become, or completing a project, or finally something kind of coming to full term. Saturn says, make it real. Right? Give it form, make it real, give it form. And I think that because Saturn is about structure and Aquarius is air, it seems very abstract, but it's about bringing all of the separate elements together and being able to show it in a very creative way. So we might see the very beginning process of new social groups being formed, new platforms being formed, new committees being formed. And I think that that's another really important piece of this, is that if you can't join them, beat them, okay? Go and start your own group, go and start your own page, go and start your own blog, start your own local community, to be able to find other people who can kind of help you join in towards a cause that might be near and dear to your heart. Have boundaries, right? Boundaries is necessary. Time management is necessary, right? I think for me personally, like the Sun-Saturn transit, just reflecting back on when it went through Scorpio a while ago. So this was like 7 years ago. I've been in my Saturn square my sun. That was a year and a half where it was like, now is the time. You know, I have to do this. I have to do something that's going to be more fulfilling, that's going to make me happy. And I'm really glad that I went, almost like walking through coals, that transit, but I went through that process because it was a period where I had to make sacrifices and I had to make decisions between what was going to basically bring me immediate gratification and what was going to bring me long-term fulfillment. And so there was a lot of sacrifice that year. There was a lot of time management. There was a lot of having to take a step back and also doing things that felt very heavy. But now 7 years into that Saturn square, I find that as a result of making the appropriate choices, I've been thriving, thankfully, thanks to you guys, knock on wood. But also the square has presented me with a sense of like, don't get comfortable, right? Don't get comfortable, keep going, keep growing. So it's had a very similar effect on me throughout this last year. And I feel like, yeah, it gives you a little bit of grit. You know, squares give you a little bit of grit, and it really pushes you to kind of step up to the plate and realize that growing pains can actually be a sign of maturity, right? And really kind of embracing that process of growing older, having more responsibility, right? Maybe even like seeing some wrinkles or some gray hair that can come because the sun is such a youthful life force that when we see aspects with Saturn, we become aware of our age and the fact that we may be wasting time, or we may realize that we don't have as much time as we used to. And I would say rather than letting that be something that beats you down, let that be the incentive for, you know, kind of getting the show on the road and doing what's necessary to make your dreams come true. And leveling up, right? Leveling up, really showing up and realizing that, you know, there can be situations and circumstances that require us to really step up to the plate, even though we feel like we're not ready. I think this in particular in the late degrees of Aquarius, and then we're also going to be coming into some rather challenging lunar transits just after the conjunction. So there's no way that we're not going to get this message. There's no way that you're not going to look at wherever Aquarius is in your chart and go, yeah, I think we're good here. Like, no, there's going to be a sense of refinement all the way until the end, really for the better part of the next 6 weeks. Let me show you why I say that. Because if you look at the moon, here comes the moon on the 17th. It's going to cross Pluto. It's going to come into Aquarius. And then we're here on the 18th. And the Mercury and moon come together. So it's communicating something about our emotional needs, our home, our psychic senses, our family, our whatever. I mean, this is going to be a dark moon too. So we're a little crabby. And then we get into later in the day on the 18th, going into the 19th, right before the new moon. The moon comes into conjunction with Saturn in the evening hours on the 19th. So 18th, we're talking about it. You know, this is what we need to, this is my goal. This is what I got to do, right? Just after the Sun-Saturn conjunction. And then here comes the moon. So the sun will be the action, the feeling of that restriction. And then the moon is, well, how do we feel about it? Let's work through it. Okay, let's make this commitment. And then we have a new moon in Pisces, conjunct Saturn, the willingness to take the time to actually go and reflect on this, or to let this go, or to focus on our vision, focus on our connection, and really allow that kind of to come together. And then finally, there will be the Saturn-Mercury conjunction. And I think that's going to be signing on the dotted line. Yep, this is when we're doing it. This is the time, you know, sending out the letter in the mail, launching the website. Like, there's going to be a sense of really cementing all of those ideas. And also what we're committing to kind of being set in stone, right? So lots of Saturn stuff going on this week. Try to see the silver lining of some of this stuff. You know, I guess I would say some of the most difficult things can also be the most rewarding, right? Throughout this transit. And you want to take a look at just how you're responding to things, basically the 16th through the 20th, because that's going to be all of the signs in regards to how you've passed the Saturn test, you know? And it's going to feel kind of loud here, having Saturn at the late degrees, having Pluto at the late degrees. I know I keep saying that, but oh my God, like, look at this. Like, look at, like, especially the 19th, look at this. Look at this. This is crazy town. Here we go. Try to get my marker. 29, 29, 29. Everything is going to just, I feel like it's just going to, it's like shrink wrap. It's like the air is going to be taken out of something and we're going to go, oh, it's coming to a stop. Or there's going to be more separation. There's going to be more commitment. And guess what? There can be more fear. There can be more freaking out. But that's not really going to help anybody. A lot of these planets coming into Pisces and everything, I think it's going to be about whether or not we're buying into the fear, what we're doing with this collective time where we're here by ourselves. Are we letting our imagination kind of run away with itself? Are we, you know, falling into like the Pisces pandemonium? Or are we focusing on creating a life where we're in a constant state of meditation, visualizing the life that we want, but also remembering like the glory plan, right? And so for so many people, some of these conjunctions can be particularly challenging because there can be a sense of being like, this can't be real. How is this happening? I've thought for a very long time that what we were going to find out in March and April, that there would be some more separation and limitation in society, whether it's for you know, stuff that's going on with mandates and health regulations, whether it was going to materialize as people not being able to meet in groups and trying to limit people from protesting, whether it was going to be for environmental reasons, because there's been a lot of speculation about environmental lockdowns and digital IDs and all these things that 2 years ago people were saying, oh, you know, take off your tinfoil hat, that's crazy. It's not so crazy anymore now, is it? So it's important that even in the face of feeling some of these limitations, right? If you're feeling like you can't talk about this, if you're feeling like you can't share your perspective, if you're feeling like you can't go and meet with like-minded people, there has to be a way to connect. And that's perhaps the most amazing thing that I've noticed about the pandemic was just how many people connected on the internet, how many people reconnected, right? How many people met future best friends or future partners. How many people started groups and successful businesses and things that were actually going to help other people. You know, it's like amazing. Like if it wasn't for the pandemic, a lot of things in my life wouldn't have happened. It really wasn't until the pandemic that I was like, okay, I'm ready to kind of pack up and move and leave LA because I wanted to live in a different area. And as a result of everything that happened with that limitation, I ended up meeting my husband, which was like totally out of the blue. Ended up relocating to a new city, you know, working on a podcast for a couple of years with a good friend of mine, getting back on YouTube. I'm really lucky because in a lot of ways, I know a lot of people's pandemic experience was not positive and it was not pleasant. And I'm not saying mine was, you know, the entire time. It's been pretty much tugging into a camera for 3 years. So feeling a little crazy here. But I think that now it's like we're going to start to realize, okay, did we pass Saturn's test? What did we do with this time? Did we utilize it appropriately, especially now as we're going into Saturn and Pisces, because we're going to have a whole lot more time on our hands, right? So the good news is Saturn hasn't left yet. Saturn's very strong at these degrees. So some of these experiences might be enough to incentivize you to want to make a change. I would encourage you guys to do that. I've been screaming that pretty much from you know, the stands really for the last 2 years, saying you guys don't want to wait until Pluto goes into Aquarius. You guys don't want to wait until spring of 2023 when everything squares and then the world's different and then you're forced to make a change, right? So who is this going to affect the most? 26 to 28 degrees of the fixed signs. So if you're a Taurus, a Leo, a Scorpio, you guys are going to feel this big time. If you have a sun, moon, or rising within these degrees, you're going to feel Saturn's crunch. It's moving, right? Just hold steady. It's going to get a little bit easier here soon when it changes signs. If you have 26 to 28 degrees of air signs like Gemini or Libra, it's going to be quite positive for you because you're going to experience a trine. Free-flowing information, it's going to support anything in regards to your sun, moon, or rising, and maybe you're just going to be feeling like a little bit more connected. Solid, right? Saturn. 26 to 28 degrees of the fire signs like Aries or Sagittarius, you guys are going to experience sextiles. So it'll be positive for you. It's going to be funneling positive information into your sun, moon, or rising. And it's going to give you the necessary connections, the social connections or information to feel like you can take action. Water signs as well as my earth signs. It's not that it's not important for you. It's just not going to be as active for you. But you may have personal planets around these degrees. And if it's your birthday or if it's your Saturn return, really important to look at those charts, guys. That's a big one. I would like to take you guys through all of the 12 signs just to kind of give you some insight in terms of what you are completing, what your lesson has been, and where Saturn and the Sun conjuncting might highlight that for you. So I'll take you through the 12 signs and I'll pull a tarot card just to give you guys some feedback. Like I said, a little bit of a graduation gift. As always, I'm a Western astrologer, so I practice tropical astrology. I'm not a Vedic astrologer. And for the purpose of my presentations, I always use whole sign houses. It's easier because it's easier for you guys to watch at home. But if you're somebody who's like, hey, I have intercepted houses, I use Placidus, no problem. All you got to do is look for where 27 degrees of Aquarius is in your chart. If it's intercepted, because I've seen some people say this in the comments, it's a blind spot. So you're going to have to listen to 2 different signs. Okay. So intercepted, blind spot. You can work through this. This is a really good video to listen to because it's going to give you a heads up of what might be a blind spot. If you want to listen to your whole sign and if you want to listen to your Placidus, both might kind of correlate. You can listen to your progress chart if that's what you guys want. It's kind of like, you know, choose your own adventure, whatever's going to work best for you guys, whatever works. But listen for your rising first and your sun and your moon sign. That's where you're going to get the most out of my predictions. And we're going to start with Aries and Aries rising. Okay. So for Aries and Aries rising, well, do I want to go back? This is going to drive me crazy. Hold on a second. I want the sun to be conjunct Saturn. There we go. Sorry, guys, I'm a stickler. Can you tell? There we go. All right, so for Aries and Aries rising, we've got the sun conjunct Saturn in Aquarius setting up for you on the 16th. Yes, a lot of what I said applies to you. Let's take a look at what this means in terms of your Saturn lesson. So you've got Saturn that's been moving through your 11th house. It's wrapping up several years of being in this house where there's been more focus and emphasis on groups, group participation, your friendships, your goals, your dreams in general, okay? Whether you joined a union or you started a really successful kind of online group, or maybe there's just been more lessons in regards to your friendships or your goals. Regardless, this is kind of wrapping up. Now, Saturn rules your professional life as well as your friends, and the Sun rules your 5th house of creativity. So I can see this manifest a couple different ways. First of all, Aries, get out there and share with a group of people, okay? That's where you're going to shine. Your lesson here is that you can take your personal talents, you can contribute and work with a group, and you can find that that's a way of being able to break through and really expand things in terms of your professional dreams. Building a group, collaborating with a group of people, sharing with a group of people. You are learning that it's all about what you're bringing to these others. Can there be some limits and boundaries in relationships or friendships? Yes, there can be a sense of being like, can't be friends with this person anymore, quitting this club. That can definitely be a thing. Networking is important, especially if it's going to be something that's going to help you expand within your social group. A friend might need you today. They might need your support, and there can be a sense of defining a romantic relationship from a friendship. If you have kids, there can also be a sense of like a kid having some squabbles with a friend or something like that, and having some issues with people at school. That's not unusual with the Sun-Saturn conjunction. You might feel the need to kind of jump in and intervene in some way and kind of give them a little bit of guidance, okay? Let's see what the cards say for you. I like this card a lot, actually, because I feel like this is about finding that balance between you and other people. And that's really what the Sun-Saturn conjunction is about. It's like, it's not just about you, it's about other people too. Relationships and partnerships, the give and take, karmic relationships and friendships kind of coming together. This is also about feeling like you're being, you're dealing with like a judgment or like weighing of a situation. So there can be a sense of like weighing the options, like, do I feel really connected to this friend? Do I not? And being able to be there for other people and feeling like you have the support necessary when it comes to being able to achieve some of the things that you're hoping to achieve professionally. So this is about finding that balance, not just between your professional life, but also your social life as well. Okay. Good luck, my Aries. For Taurus and Taurus rising, ooh, this is big for you, Taurus. This is big. You've got the Sun-Saturn conjunction in your 10th house, okay? So 2.5 years of you probably just feeling like you've been grinding it out. But this is going to be a very interesting time where I feel like there is a sense of you looking at things going like, this is my kingdom. This is what I've created. Yes, there can be squabbles that you can have with fathers, grandfathers, brothers, bosses. Sure, that can happen. There can also be this feeling of feeling overwhelmed with the responsibility between home and business, that there's a lot on your plate at work right now, but that there's also a sense of your private life somehow factoring into your public responsibilities and trying to weigh that. It can be about parenting responsibilities. It can be about needing to bring a kid to work, needing to leave work to pick up a kid, something in regards to home and family. It's been rather challenging for you, Taurus, because it's been squaring off with Uranus for several years in your sign and you've wanted to break free. But the truth is like, this is a moment of getting a lot of recognition. And I really hope that you soak up the limelight right now, because I feel like you have a lot of people's attention. There's a lot of things that are finally coming full circle. You've laid the groundwork for your career. And some of you guys may also see this as like a graduation process where you're, now moving on and you're becoming a boss or a mentor. Maybe you're getting ready to finally retire and complete, a long period of working hard. It really depends. But I think you in particular are definitely going to see this play out much more publicly, right, out in the world. Equally, Saturn is the ruler of your 9th house. So there can be this sense of being like, I published this book, or I finally got this teaching position, or I'm traveling to go and, be able to work with a group and teach them. I'm finally completing a program of sorts, like something like that can be happening. Maybe your philosophy in regards to what your career is or what your job is finally changing, and you're embracing this new kind of, this new like persona. And also a lot's going to be changing with Pluto going into your 10th house too. I mean, this might be a time where you just have a lot of recognition for doing a job well done. Let's see what the cards say for you. Get the Queen of Cups, which is interesting because, for me, there's so many other things that talk about limitation and restriction and like feeling bogged down and like you've just got so much on your plate. And that may be the case, but I think that this is also about looking at things in a way where you're knowing your emotional limits, you're knowing your boundaries, you know? And that's what Saturn can be about, knowing your boundaries, where work ends and your private life begins. Paying attention to your emotions, letting your emotions kind of be the guide for how you want to navigate doing the work that you need to do. This can also be talking about aspects relating to other water placements. So we've got the Venus-Neptune conjunction. And I feel like you're looking at things going, I'm getting so much recognition and positive feedback that it's like, okay, maybe this was worth it, right? And it took that for you to kind of realize that it was worth all the sacrifice that you've been making. And you can kind of rest assured and feel a little bit more emotionally balanced when it comes to just having put your heart and soul into something these last few years. So good luck, my Tauruses. For Gemini and Gemini rising, we have got the Sun-Saturn conjunction setting up in your sister sign, Aquarius, in your natal 9th house. Well, this is also really, I think it's really wonderful for the air signs in general, but I think you and Libra are going to benefit the most with some of the trines that you're going to be receiving to either your sun, your moon, or your rising. I like that Mercury is coming into the trine with either your ascendant, sun, moon, but also with Mars, because I feel like some of the positive transitions that are taking place in terms of your faith, your belief, your philosophy, some of the trips you're taking, some of the things you're publishing, some of the places that you're visiting, and the mentors and the teachers that you're working with are really helping shape the person that you're becoming, right? Throughout the Mars retrograde, I think a lot of you guys have felt a little discombobulated and you don't know what direction you're going in. But now that you feel like you have a better understanding of what your path is, you're going to be approaching your professional life very differently here over these next few months. The Sun-Saturn conjunction in the 9th is taking the combination of your 3rd house of how you communicate, what you think, what you're learning. And it can also be about documents, paperwork, siblings, neighbors, cars. And it's merging that with your 8th house Lord. So I'm wondering, like, are some of you guys having to file legal paperwork? Are some of you guys having to look at applying for loans to be able to buy a car or to move? Are some of you guys educating yourself on your personal rights? Are you learning more about law? Are you completing, degrees that's making it possible for you to finally go out and get your dream job, right? Something like that is going to be going on for you. I like that also. As soon as we see Mercury come into this conjunction with Saturn, something is going to be finalized. So some of you guys may be turning over a book that's being ready to be edited or getting ready to be published, or you're going to be committing to a program, or you're going to be kind of clicking buy on some airplane tickets and getting ready to pack your bags and go somewhere rather significant. So look for that as you get a little bit further down with some of those transits. Wow, I like this. This, I think, is more talking about Pluto. So the death card about change, transformation, difficult process, things ending. Yeah, I mean, listen, the 8th house Lord is involved here. Okay, so Saturn's ringing true. So it's about, what are you learning about endings? What are you learning about debt? What are you learning about death? What are you learning about transformation? What are you learning about joint resources? Ask yourself these questions. Death and taxes are the only 2 things that are like basically guaranteed in life, right? So I think it's saying that change is inevitable. It's about how you're embracing that change. And that can be change in terms of your belief system or change in terms of where you're living. It doesn't matter. It can be across the board with this transit. And it's about embracing those changes and not pushing back against them. That once you allow something to kind of end, something new can begin. And I'm very curious to see what that brings a lot of you guys with Pluto going into your 9th house, because it may mean that you're getting very passionate about research. You're getting very passionate about astrology. You're getting very passionate about health, and also finding ways to be of service. So the sooner that you kind of let something go, the easier it's going to be for you to let the new emerge. Okay, good luck. That can be a rocky one. Let me know, Gemini, what's happening there. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. We're taking a look at the Sun-Saturn conjunction in your natal 8th house. Oh boy. So the 8th house, yeah, okay, death, sex, taxes, but it's more than that. It's karmic entanglement. It's debt, it's loans, it's also intimacy, sex, insurance. It can also be about things changing in terms of your security, especially when it comes to other people. Now we've got Saturn, which is your 7th house lord of relationships, meeting in the 8th house with the sun. To me, this seems more challenging in terms of really coming to terms with what other people will and will not give you, okay? This can be literal or figuratively. What the attention they will or will not give you, the money they will or will not give you, the appreciation they will or will not give you, right? So that's what I want you guys to think about. Aquarius is a funky energy for you, Cancer. You know, it creates an inconjunct to your sign, so you guys have nothing in common, and where you're very emotional and sensitive and receptive, this is a little bit more abstract and a little bit more detached. The question is what have you learned about your connection to other people over these last few years, right? You can't base your self-worth off of whether or not you have a lot of money in the bank or a partner or an expensive car, or it doesn't matter. The 8th house is basically saying you can't take any of that stuff with you when you die. So what do you have? What can you rely on? What can you commit to? If there is a debt owed, it is likely to be required to be paid. And this is about taxes, this is bills. And I think that debt consolidation and also previous tax stuff and anything in regards to loans can be a little tricky with some of these transits in general. So it can be a time where you're finding that more documentation is necessary before you can refinance. You might get an answer or a letter in the mail in terms of whether or not, you know, you have qualified for a credit card, or whether or not somebody is willing to loan you money, quite literally. If it's not these things, then I anticipate that it's going to be about finally putting to rest a situation in regards to a relationship and whether or not a relationship can move forward. And that means even as friends. So this can be a sense of looking at things being like, look, there's too many feelings here. I don't even know if we can be friends. It can also be there's way too much that's gone on. I don't know if we can still stay connected. So there can be a sense of needing to cut and sever something and saying, no, we cannot continue in this direction. We cannot continue in this path forward. Business partners, clients, also it can be about your marketplace and saying that you're no longer going to carry a product. You're no longer going to continue to sell something. Okay, let's take a look. Let's see what the cards say for you, Cancer. Ouch. 4 of Swords, letting it lie, letting it be, taking a rest, taking a step back, letting it go. It can be about processing grief, especially, you know, if it's something that's hitting you several months or several years later. It can be also just your mental, emotional state as a result of realizing that something has kind of hit like a dead end and that there is no way forward. Rest, recuperation, but sometimes this is a card that comes up that literally talks about funerals or taking a break in a relationship, or needing to go literally detox and rest and retreat and take some downtime. So that definitely can happen in the 8th house. We could see that. We could realize that we need some support. Letting it be and not assuming that you have to have it all figured out right now, right? And so if you don't really know what direction things are going in, rather than spinning out about the future and what could come to an end, it's giving yourself the necessary rest and peace, right? Good luck, Cancer. We've got Leo and Leo rising. All the Leos at the edge of their seat right now, right? Look at that 7th house. Woof. So the sun is your chart ruler, right? The sun is about your body. Wherever the sun goes is kind of like where you're having some sense of action. Sun in the 7th house is shining light on other people, coming into conjunction with Saturn. Can be about serious commitment in regards to partnerships and relationships. Saturn rules your 6th house of coworkers, health, and also habits. And the fact that Sun and Saturn are coming together makes me feel like, number one, you can be highly critical of other people as a result of this transit. You may feel like other people are being very critical of you. Might be a time where you're needing to sit down and get more support from a partner, or you're feeling like you need to hire an assistant. You're feeling like you need to get some assistance from an astrologer, from a mentor, from a counselor, right? 7th house is people who help us. But as the Sun and Saturn come into conjunction, it's literally about you and another person. And because Saturn has that connection also to your 6th house, it might be a definitive moment where you realize like whether or not there is a way to build forward into a future long-term partnership with another person. This is not an easy aspect for you. I'm curious to see when Mercury shows up, what materializes. I'm also curious to see what happens when Pluto shows up, because the writing's on the wall. You may not be looking for a relationship, but somebody might find you. That's the other way that I look at this, like a really significant client or counselor or therapist or mentor. Somebody can pop in that you are meant to connect with, that's going to help you through these transits. So it's not always romantic. But there will be boundaries that you will start to kind of see in terms of relationships and whether or not certain friendships or relationships can move forward. I would say that with the Sun-Saturn conjunction. I would say that with the Mercury-Saturn conjunction, and it's all preemptively before Pluto goes into your 7th house. Guys, over the next couple months, you're going to see the nodes also square Pluto. You're going to see Jupiter square Pluto. The truth is that you cannot be with somebody unless your heart is in it. You cannot partner with someone unless you feel like they are going to support you 110% in business or in life. Equally, this is houses that deal with your reputation and your image and your public fame. So if you're really focusing on wanting to gain more traction, gain more notability, have more people following you, seeing what you're doing, wanting to work with you, wanting to also support you in whatever your business may be, the Sun-Saturn is the time to really show up and own something and be like, yes, this is mine. Yeah, how can I help you? And like really playing an active role in just putting yourself out there throughout that transit. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens, because it can be a period where you also realize the true nature of some people who you're either in a relationship with or people who you're working with, and whether or not it's actually beneficial for you. Ooh, I like it. Queen of Swords. The energy in itself, the Sun-Saturn is very masculine because it's in an air sign, and these are two masculine signs. Two masculine planets. The Queen of Swords is like very like between the eyes, like she's going to tell you what she thinks and how she sees and how she feels. I wonder if this is about an important conversation with somebody and it's helping you kind of further define yourself or get to the point or figure out a way of being able to put yourself out there in a very direct, intellectual, manner. So this can also be like working with somebody who's going to potentially manage you or who's going to guide you or who's going to help assist you and perfect something, especially with the Sun-Saturn aspect. It could literally be an Aquarius, okay? It could also be a Gemini, it could be a Libra, but definitely it could be a woman who's coming in, who's helping you with this process and giving you some really between the eyes direct advice or assistance with how you want things to come across. Good luck. We got Virgo and Virgo rising. What's going on, Virgo? We've got Sun and Saturn coming into conjunction in your 6th house of Aquarius. Okay, so it creates that in conjunct, similar to Cancer, so a little different. But this is interesting because you're a 6th house type of energy, right? So the 6th house, daily routine, health, fitness, making sure you're getting your job done, being of service, all the details. So you do better with this energy. And you've also got Mercury going through this part of your chart as well. So I feel like you might have a different experience. I feel like this is the point in time where you're really kind of getting the swing of like your routine. If you have been focusing on working with a group of people, if you have been focusing on getting onto a new schedule, if you've been focusing on consistency with going to the gym, if you've been going through medical treatments or new programs, you're finally, I think, going to start to see the results. I also think that the Sun-Saturn is really showing you where some of these daily routines can help keep you grounded and keep you sane. And if you do not have some of these actual routines, that it can actually be something that can really throw off your physical or even your mental health. Kind of a weird energy, right? Because the Sun rules your 12th house of self-undoing. Saturn is ruling your 5th house of creativity and anything in regards to romance, and they meet in the 6th. So it's saying, are you having a creative block? Are you having a romantic crisis? Are you feeling unseen and unheard? Is it manifesting as literally you having some physical ailments or feeling sick? Pay attention to your health, please. Pay attention to your physical and your mental health. Really watch for when Mercury comes into that conjunction with Saturn, that's going to be really important because you're Mercury ruled. So it looks like that's going to be happening right around March 2nd. And whether or not you have to deal with a crisis in relation to your mental health, in relation to your routine, a pet, a coworker, a hard drive becomes fried, right? Something like that can happen. But for the most part, I think if you've been working hard on bringing about these new routines and seeing healthier habits, this might be the fruit of now when you experience a little bit of pressure during these transits, you go, no, I have a routine I can fall back on. I'm not going to fall back into bad habits. I'm not going to let that happen. I know how to better support myself, right? And making time for friends, making time for creativity, making time for romance. You can't not do that. It can't be all work and no play. Love it. Here's the World card. It's basically talking about completing things. I'm seeing so many Virgo risings that are either in one boat or the other, and you may not be, and that's okay. But I'm seeing a lot of them that are like realizing the relationship's not working and that they have to get a divorce or they're having to move out or that it's not conducive to, you know, them having a healthy lifestyle, being with a significant person. I'm also seeing other people who are finally meeting people and they're realizing like, oh my goodness, like now I have to make time in my life for this other person and I can't have a relationship unless I'm making time. You're feeding or you're going to be feeling this because Saturn's coming into Pisces soon. Okay, so what I love about the 6th house is that it's about completing all of our own personal crisis right before we meet other people, right? So you think of like Friday night, you know, you're coming home from work, you've been working all day, right? You're not just going to immediately like go out to dinner. Most people don't. You're going to come home, you're going to take a shower, you're going to get ready, you're going to change. You're going to make sure that you're all put together before you hop in that Uber and you go and you meet someone for dinner, and you're just making sure that every hair is in its place. That's the 6th house. So where do you need to get your shit together before you meet other people, right? That's what's happening right now. So the World card is cool because it's saying like, yeah, you're completing some of this stuff. You're completing some of this your own personal messiness, your crisis. Maybe you're finally cleaning up more, you're cleaning up your habits, and you're really ready to meet other people. So that's a really good sign that something is completing, and all of the hard work and the attention to detail that you've been really focusing on, it's all coming full circle. Okay, awesome for you. That's a hard one, having Saturn in your 6th. We've got Libra and Libra rising. What's going on, Libra? We've got a Sun-Saturn conjunction taking place for you in your natal 5th house. Finally completing several long years of having Saturn in your sister sign of Aquarius. Libra, I think you're benefiting from this quite a bit actually, because you have like the missing piece. We've got Mars in Gemini, and we're going to have a stack of planets in your 5th house. Aquarius is a sister sign, so we're going to see these air trines. So it's all about movement, communication, intellect, sharing, socializing, okay? Sun-Saturn is a representation of the Sun being the ruler of your 10th house, of friends, networks, you know, groups, other people, coming into a conjunction with Saturn in your 5th. Now, Saturn rules your 5th, but it also rules your 4th house. So this is literally about other people giving you the necessary praise and recognition and like loving on you a little bit for some of your own creative talents and things that you've been working on, just being you. Equally, this can be a time where you're becoming more acutely aware of where there's just a lot of responsibility on your plate. The 5th house can be children, it can be creative projects, it can be if you're self-employed, the dedication that goes into making your work look so flawless and making it look so effortless when really it's a grind, I would assume. This is also about space in regards to your home and your creative center. So like whether or not there's like toys all over the house that like keep you from being able to feel like you have a space where you can work that's clean and decluttered. If this is also about whether or not you're feeling like there needs to be changes that are going on within your physical home space that might relate to emotional issues with relatives, with parents, with a family member. This can also be about big decisions that are being made in your love life and whether or not you're feeling the love, whether or not you feel like you're dedicating enough time to a creative project, or if you're feeling like bogged down because of family or children or just challenges that are going on that are keeping you from feeling happy. Saturn in the 5th house can be a bit of a drag, but as these planets are coming through Aquarius, they're trining your ascendant and they're also trining out. So it's important to realize that some of the lessons about creativity and fulfillment and happiness is like what you're willing to do to ensure that you have that. And yeah, you may have to teach, or you may have to travel, or you may have to focus on spending more time with having kids. Equally, it can be a time where you have like friends that are complaining to you about their children, talking to you about their kids, and, you know, giving you feedback, or, you know, talking to you about challenges in their love life. Love life might feel a little rocky around these transits. And something else I would just watch for is just anything in regards to inner child work, your children, or the possibility of commitment to a future of having a child. All right, so let's take a look what the cards say for you, Libra. Queen of Wands. I like this. I feel like this is about being creative. I feel like this is about kind of stepping up to the plate and willingly taking on the challenge and like learning to have fun. And I mean, Saturn in the 5th house, I've had that transit the last 2 years. It's been teaching me like you have to work hard to create that time to have fun. And if it's just working all the time, then it needs to be working in a way where at least it feels creative and it's not restricted. So what I like about the Queen of Wands is that it's encouraging you to focus on life, creating things, doing things, you know, being active, being out there. And also being determined, you know, to see projects all the way through. So you might need to be a little bit more fierce. There may be assistance that comes with a fire sign. So there can definitely be an Aries or a Leo or a Sag that pops up. Intuitively, I wonder if it's going to be an Aquarius or a Leo, just with the sun conjuncting Saturn in the 5th. It could be one of these two characters that pop in that give you some necessary support or information or feedback in terms of what you need to do in order to feel happy and creative. Okay? Good luck, Libra. For Scorpio and Scorpio rising, we have got Sun and Saturn coming into conjunction in your natal 4th house. Oh boy. As with all the fixed signs, you guys are all going to feel this conjunction, especially, like I said, 25 to 28, 29 degrees of the fixed signs. You guys are going to feel this. Scorpio, look at how many planets are at the bottom of this chart. Okay? So everything that's going on right now, even though it's more private, to me, there's a lot happening, and it's 4 houses from your sign. So it does feel heavy. Okay? Feeling heavy, feeling bogged down, feeling stuck in the house. It's been 2.5 years of this energy. I know you're over it. But Saturn is finally getting ready to leave soon, and it's going to go into Pisces. And so this is almost like getting everything ready before there's this huge breakthrough with Saturn going into your 5th. Now, similar to Taurus, you've got the Sun, which is the ruler of the 10th house of career, coming into conjunction with Saturn in your 4th house, which rules your 3rd. What I think is that there may be like a difficult conversation that you end up having with a relative or a sibling or a family member. You might have to have a difficult conversation with a parent. There may be a sense of talking about responsibility for a home-related situation, for having to go back home and help with something. You may have to place a call to an aunt, uncle, cousin, sibling about something that's going on. There may potentially, knock on wood, be unexpected traveling that has to happen because you have to be with family and you're like, I am busy. The other way I could look at this is that the responsibility stems just from your work at home, you know, just working at home, grinding it out, getting it done. And perhaps maybe you're feeling like, okay, finally some of these things are becoming fruitful. You know, if you've been working on rebuilding a house, you know, you might finally start to see that kind of coming all together. Or a home project. If you've been waiting on a house to close or to sell, or if you've been waiting to hear whether or not you're going to be moving, that may happen. There can be challenges also with neighbors, so watch for that, especially in terms of neighbors who are kind of like patrolling the neighborhood and saying like what should or shouldn't be happening. Watch for like HOA issues and things of that nature. There can also be siblings and other people coming and being in the home and being kind of bossy, especially male relatives. That can be a theme. The 4th house is about ends of situations as well, so be mindful that there can be, once again, touch wood, situations where older relatives, particularly men, go to rest. And so the fourth house makes me wonder if there's, you know, getting wind that, you know, you have to go and be back home because there's a funeral, or there is somebody who's in hospice or dealing with some health related issues. Unfortunately, this can happen, Scorpio, especially considering that you've got Pluto just inching its way into your fourth house. At some point, whether it's now or it's later this year, some of these situations may be inevitable. Changes and radical transformations in your home base as well. Okay. Let's take a look and see what the cards say. So I get the Nine of Coins. Kind of relieved seeing this card because I feel like this is the realization that you are totally 100% capable and you can handle pretty much anything that's thrown your way. This is also about making your life more comfortable. This is about planning and having like long-term stability and knowing that you can give it to yourself. That's really what the Saturn transit is about. You could be living in a house with 4 other people and feel alone through that transit. There is also a lot of learning to become self-reliant. And so I think that this is a wonderful card because it's saying that you're finally enjoying the riches of the end of this transit and realizing that you're a lot stronger and more capable than you thought. And it's also about really treating yourself and giving yourself all of the things that you need. Comforting yourself as well. Fourth house Saturn transits, you got to put yourself down for naps. You got to take baths. You got to, you know, be that parent that you may not feel like you had. It's really important learning how to nurture and take care of yourself because you're building that foundation in the bottom of your chart before you move into some bigger transits in this next year. Okay, so good luck. We've got Aquarius, excuse me, we've got Sag and Sag rising. Aquarius went, what? We've got Sagittarius and Sag rising. We have got Sun and Saturn coming into conjunction in your natal 3rd house. Okay, I like this for you. So the Sun-Saturn conjunction is kind of encapsulating the Saturn transit that we've had over these last 2.5 years. The Sun rules your 9th house, which is about foreign places, travel, education, publishing, learning, the bigger picture of life, right? And the conjunction between the Sun and Saturn is kind of highlighting like what you're investing your beliefs into, what you're investing into when it comes to your ideas, your communication. Some of you guys may be, you know, doing all of the heavy lifting to launch a new website. Some of you guys may be finally taking everything that you've been learning and putting it together and packaging and getting ready to sell an online course. Some of you guys may be moving and realizing that it's going to take a little bit more responsibility than you anticipated or a little bit more funds. Communication can be challenging, especially when it comes to in-laws or other relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins. Sun Saturn in the 3rd can materialize as some serious conversations with siblings or an inability to communicate or get on well with siblings and not share the same perspective as them. Watch for issues with documents, limitations with documents, things that you may have to get signed or they may have to become made official, especially for you know, driving or traveling as well. Thankfully, this is a supportive energy though. Okay, so you're going to see that it's going to sextile your ascendant. So at the very least, I feel like this is about you being more proactive in communicating and getting the point across, and especially with other people. So if you're kind of saying, I'm going to use the energy to focus more on planning a trip, or I'm going to use the energy more to kind of finally finish a program, or maybe like launch a website, that works too. I like the trines to your 7th house because I feel like it's like luring in more partners, right? So it's bringing in clients, it's bringing in more traction on social media, you're getting more people's attention, or you're using it just to communicate more effectively with other people. Perhaps you're completing like a book that you've been reading on self-help. If you've been learning astrology, if you've been learning tarot, this can be finally feeling like you're ready to start showing your skills and taking clients and working with other people as well. I like also the aspects that we're seeing between Mercury and your chart ruler, because it makes me feel like it's something that can be fun and creative. And to you, it's like, oh, it's passive, but it can end up being something that is potentially wildly successful as well. So watch for that communication, okay? It can be a little bit more serious, a little bit more stern. Don't allow yourself to get into kind of feeling like the mind is being bogged down and feeling negative. It's easy to get in that direction. And when in doubt, like go for a walk, get out, go for a drive, do something that's going to kind of help ease that energy up. Ooh, okay. 2 cards popped out. So the Page of Swords and the Four of Wands. To me, this makes me feel like there's going to be some kind of news, or you're going to find that maybe you're planning something, maybe you're planning a trip, maybe you had to put a lot of work or effort into it. Maybe you're finally like mastering a language because you're planning on going somewhere. This may even be just getting out and communicating and feeling like you're getting out again, and that you're able to talk to people, and that you don't feel weird or strange, like walking up to people and like getting to know people in your neighborhood, right? Because this is about socializing, coming together with others. And the Page of Swords is like a message. So it looks like somebody's going to say, hey, do you want to come and join us? Do you want to go on this trip? Do you want to get together? Do you want to take this program with us? Like there's going to be something that's going to encourage you to connect with other people. The Page of Swords popping up could literally be an Aquarius, a Gemini, or a Libra who gives you that invitation. And I think it's really saying that it's allowing you to go and participate in this because of a new perspective, or a new like outlook in terms of how you connect and communicate with other people. Okay. Good luck, Sag. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. We're looking at the Sun-Saturn conjunction in your natal 2nd house. This is important. Saturn rules your chart. It also rules your 2nd house, and the Sun rules your 8th. Look at all these planets in your 2nd house, Cappies. Now's a really good time to have like a healthy sense of values, self-esteem, being really kind of not rigid, but really focused with your finances. Be mindful of what you should and shouldn't be spending. The Sun rules the 8th house and other people's money, and Saturn is your chart ruler. So I feel like other people are going to be like, hey, can I borrow some money? Hey, can you help me pay this off? Like, hey, can I, get an advance on my allowance? Would you be willing to give me this thing? And you're like, no. No, I'm not. Sorry. Or standing up for what is yours, right? Especially I'm seeing a lot of Capricorn risings who unfortunately are dealing with sick relatives, or going back home, or dealing with insurance or wills or estates. And so there can be a sense of needing to be like, this is mine. I'm entitled to this. Because the Sun-Saturn is talking about you possessing something that might be challenged by another person. So it's a time where you're going to be really focused on your possessions, your resources, your financial abilities. You may feel like you need to scale back on the spending. You might be like, no, I'm not taking out the credit card. No, I'm not accepting the increase on my line of credit. No, I'm not going to be going on a shopping spree, right? But it's more than that. It's the self-esteem, focusing on the self-esteem, how you're realizing that it's a necessary part of redefining your values, and also your financial well-being, right? You're only going to get paid what you feel like you're worth. So as all these planets are coming through your 2nd house, you're becoming more aware of what it is that you need, and also what you value. So there may be more bills, there may be more expenses, but there's also a sense of being like, I built this, right? Like I work hard so I can be able to afford this, or to be able to provide myself or my family with these things. There can be more financial burden though. So that's the one thing that I want you to be mindful of. And I think the 2nd house is more of the spending power coming into conflict, as it has for several years with Uranus in the 5th. So maybe you have an inconsistent side hustle. It's not always bringing in money. Maybe there's a lot of money that needs to go into a hobby. Maybe there's kids that require a lot of spending. And so you're kind of really looking at things being like, okay, I need to acquire, and maybe that's taking away from my social life, and maybe that's me putting it back into what makes me happy, or my children, or my own business. But this is a very, very important transit for you. So pay attention, and even the days to follow. And then when Mercury starts coming into that conjunction too, some of you guys, I could see you needing to talk to lawyers, or teachers, mentors, gurus, to kind of help you work through something that can kind of assist you, especially if you're dealing with passports, visas, these kinds of things that can definitely kind of come up as well. But focus on the finances, pay attention. There are some areas where you're going to need to trim the fat, but as far as I'm concerned, this might actually be, this might be the fruit from working really hard and making sacrifices these last few years, and you start to see it really financially pay off, okay? Let's take a look at what the cards say for you, Capricorn. Ooh, Temperance. Timing, you know, timing is everything, allowing everything to kind of come together in its own sense. Healing, so I think that this is about healing financial issues, healing self-esteem issues, healing also from perhaps feeling like you're the one running the show. With this many planets in the second house and this 8th house Lord being there, it's like, I gotta, you know, work on myself, and I gotta do this and I gotta do that, and like feeling like you need to heal the need to just take everything on. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So you're working on that. You're learning to find more balance in yourself, and also balance in a way of looking at maybe wealth in a different manner, and not letting material goods or numbers in a bank account define you. You're healing that right now. Good luck, Cappies. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. This is big for you guys. So you've got Saturn, which is your chart ruler, one of them in your first house, with the Sun, which is the ruler of the 7th house. Kind of polar opposite to what I saw with Leo, where it was more about how Leos are getting involved and how they're maybe feeling some restrictions. In this case, the Sun and Saturn, it could very much be you telling someone else no. No, it's not good enough. No, it's not working. No, that's not my path. No, thank you. Not right now. Never again, right? These things can happen. Saturn rules your 12th house of your subconscious, your first house of self. And like I said, the Sun rules your 7th. So there does seem to be a sense of focusing more on you, your body, your limits, what makes you happy. This can be a period of realizing that you need less, or that you need less distractions. It can be a period also of really focusing on committing to yourself, what you need, asking other people for assistance, right? This is where the 7th house Lord comes to the first. So I think of like counselors, therapists, physical therapists. Also, it could be your relationship with romantic partners, your relationship with a counselor, your relationship with a child, right? Because this is in Leo, right? The 7th house is Leo. Asking kids for assistance, asking them if they can be there to help you. Watch for body-related issues, stiffness, back problems, heart problems. All of these things can happen with that restriction of the Sun. Sometimes there can also be this fear that you're projecting of something ominous coming. You might feel like a heavier mood. Meditation can help. Hiking can help. Grounding out that energy can help. It's a lot of air in this chart. And what's lacking is... really what's lacking, I think, is fire. We don't have a lot of stuff going on in fire. So, you know, where you can incorporate more like infrared light, where you can get sunshine, where you can get a little active, or maybe do some like energy work so you can kind of move some of that stuff around a little bit better. And be mindful that this is that commitment really all week between the Sun, Saturn, and then Mercury, Saturn, of this realization that you're going through a change. You're changing something about your appearance. You're changing something about your values. You're changing something about your outlook. And you're telling the world, like, this is the new normal. This is where I'm going. And then it's all in preparation for Pluto. Just try not to be too down on yourself. Try not to get too stuck in a bit of like a grind, or in a bit of like a slump. If you're starting to feel like that, like I said, incorporate air elements in and help you move some of that stuff around. But don't be afraid to tell people no. Equally, if you need help, or if you need assistance, or if you need somebody to lend a helping hand, or to just be someone that can kind of listen to you, it's important to ask, not feel like you're limited and that you're separate from other people, because part of the transit is about learning to ask other people for support. I'm really curious and excited to see how this manifests for you, because I feel like this is going to be the defining moment where, if you realize that you're going through a life-altering change or a crisis, or you really feel like you need to get some assistance, if you ask, you'd be surprised who's going to show up to help you through that. Wow, 2 of them. 4 of Swords. So yeah, a period of mourning and letting go. I'm feeling that it's more about like an old version of yourself. And I think that there's like this point that you're going to come probably within the next week or 2 where you're going to be like, I'm at the point of no return. I know that things have to end, or this pattern has to end, or this phase of my life has to end, or, you know, this version of me is like maturing, and like now that's one phase of my life and I'm moving into the next. And so I think a lot of it is about being present with that. If you do feel a little down, if you do need to rest more, so be it. Just don't get stagnant. That's the one bit of advice I can give you, which is silly because this card really wants you to just be in one place. But I know intuitively that that's not going to help. So you do need to do some stuff to move that around. I would say rest and recuperation is fine. Listen to some binaural beats also. That can help kind of break up some of that energy. So at least you're doing something that can be more therapeutic while you're resting. And it's all in preparation for Pluto coming into your sign. Okay. Let me know how that's going for you, Aquarius. I'm curious to see how that plays out. And we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. We have Saturn and the Sun coming into conjunction in Aquarius in your natal 12th house of the hidden and the subconscious. Saturn is the ruler of the 11th house of friends, goals, and associations. The Sun is the ruler of your 6th house. Two or three things come to mind. First of all, you may be feeling a little hermity. Okay, it's just before your birthday, so that's not unusual. But Saturn's there, so kind of like doubly. There can be a sense of being in your own head or being in your own kind of like mystical wonderland where you're just focusing on your spiritual work, meditation, reflection. Maybe you're traveling, maybe you're studying, you're trying to complete a program. Saturn's really having you focus on that holding pattern, that space of kind of being in like your cocoon before there's like a grand reveal. And there's one coming with Saturn that's about to hit your ascendant. So you're definitely coming into a brand new 29, 30-year cycle with Saturn's transit here soon. And right now, it kind of feels like things are completing, right? So you need to be mindful of habits, bad habits, physical habits that affect your sleep pattern, mental, emotional habits that make you feel like you're isolated and separated from the world or fearful of kind of getting out and about. I would say the Sun-Saturn conjunction is teaching you like where physical and spiritual is very connected, and your mental or your spiritual health can affect your physical and vice versa. 12th house is healing centers. So, you know, it's a great time to like go to a temple, go to a meditation retreat, like go and sit and get a Reiki healing. Focus on being able to, you know, practice some of your spiritual ritual work. But I think this is about healing. I think this is about healing the auric field and like working with the other subtle energy bodies. And if you've got a health ailment going on and you can't figure out what's going on, needing to go see somebody who can kind of see a little bit beyond just the physical. But also hospitals, hidden places, you know, but I think that this is a lot about rest. This can also just be about privacy, that you really valued your alone time and your privacy, and maybe making some real shifts in regards to your life with these upcoming transits of Saturn moving into your sign. So completing programs, also finally kind of going back out into the world and maybe identifying in a very different way. I can't help but notice that Mercury is here too. So some of you guys might feel like there are some really hidden things going on with relationships. There's some hidden things going on with home and family. And maybe there's this realization that there is about to be a huge shift and you're just kind of keeping it to yourself right now before you share that with the world. I like the fact that there's trines with air planets to what is typically water houses. And I think this is about how you're intellectualizing and communicating your emotions and your feelings better, right? And so it requires a lot of like faith, and also I think a lot of like spirit support with this many planets in the 12th house. So when in doubt, you know, connect with that spirit team, meditate, ask for guidance, ask for assistance, and you're going to feel like there is something that's literally washing out right as we're coming into these transits. The card that I got for you is the Lovers, which is interesting. You got Venus and Neptune in your sign. So super romantic, although I think a lot of you guys are going to be feeling like, where is my person? Why am I alone? What's going on? Who else is out there? What's out there for me? Divine love and connection. So I do think there might be some karmic things going on in relationships with Mercury in your 12th. Watch for that Mercury-Saturn conjunction in early March. That's definitely going to be very telling. I get the impression also this is about options and choices and like what path you take and like what you're wrapping up and what you're really done with. And where you're going and like weighing the options and being like, am I going to take that bait? right? And it can be secret relationships. It can be secret connections. It can be secret meetings happening with these planets in the 12th house. But I don't think it's like taboo. I think it's just more kind of going like, okay, I could see my life going this way, or I could see my life going that way, you know, like which direction am I going to go in? And needing to make a decision because you're going to start feeling the pressure of Saturn in your sign. Watch for those karmic relationships. Be mindful also that with Venus and Neptune on in your sign in the first house, it's really going to be about what's going to be most loving for you, what's going to be best for you. And sometimes what's best for you is actually cutting or letting some of these connections go. So that might be the difficult choices and the temptation with like staying with that connection, or realizing like, no, it's time to really kind of be on my way and get on my path. Okay. Guys, I'm curious to see what happens with these transits. Like I said, I'm excited to be graduating from the Saturn transit myself. I'm ready to be out of the Saturn squares. Let me know, how is this playing out for you? What have you learned throughout the Saturn transit these last few years? What house has it been transiting for you? And what are you finally completing? What has become solid in a sense of what you've been working through since 2020? I'd love to hear. As always, thank you guys for joining me. Thank you guys for your support, for your likes, your comments, your shares. You can also find me here on Friday nights. I do live readings. You can check out my community tab. I'm always posting signups for that. We do tarot or we do astrology. This week's going to be astrology, and there's a lot of big astrology going on. So if you guys want to join me, sign up for that. I'll have that probably going out later today. Equally, if you want to get a reading with me, if you want to chat with me, I do natal chart readings, transit readings, election astrology, synastry, and composites. You name it. You can find my information down below at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. I'm booking out in April and May, so if you guys want to talk to me for your birthdays, I recommend booking something. Equally, I teach astrology, so if you resonate with my style and you want to learn astrology, you can check out my website. I've got all kinds of beginners courses and classes and other things there as well, both for tarot and astrology. Okay. Until next time, I'll see all of you guys on my live on Friday, and I will also see you Sunday for Astro Weather. We'll talk all about the astrology for this next week. Otherwise, you guys take care and enjoy the rest of your week.